welcome to Tudor Cooking with Claire. Now today I'm going to be making a Tudor medieval recipe called Pears in Compote, or as it's written in the manuscript, Pears in Compost, which actually doesn't sound quite as nice. Now I was actually inspired to do this by my son Christian, who lives in Moscow at the moment. He sent me a message the other day with a photo of a fruit compote that he'd made. Now in Russia, a fruit compote isn't what we think of as a compote, as being a syrupy dessert. It's actually a drink. So he made it from boiling up cranberries, blueberries and raspberries along with water, and boiling it for about 30 minutes before straining the fruit out and then adding sugar, and actually having it as a drink, as a hot drink. Which of course is brilliant at this time of year when it's minus something in Moscow and it's very snowy there, to have a nice hot fruit drink, a bit like a non-alcoholic mulled wine. But today I'm doing the sort of medieval version of that. I actually looked up the history of compotes. This is from Wikipedia. I mean, Wikipedia is not always great for historical accuracy, but it seemed to be spot on this time. It said compote conformed to the medieval belief that fruit cooked in sugar syrup balanced the effects of humidity on the body. Of course, they believed in the 4 humours there, so it was all about balancing the body. The name is derived from the Latin word compositus, meaning mixture. In late medieval England, it was served at the beginning of the last course of a feast, or sometimes the second of 3 courses, often accompanied by creamy pottage. During the Renaissance, it was served chilled at the end of dinner. So there you have it, as kind of, a sort of a break between courses, as a kind of dessert, whereas in Russia it's, enjoyed still today as a drink, and in England and many other countries around the world it's enjoyed as a dessert today. Now the recipe I'm using for pears in compote, or pears in compost, is from 2 15th century cookery books. It's the Harleian manuscript 279 and 4016, and you can actually find these books online on archive.org, and you can read the original recipes, which is brilliant. I'm going to read you the original recipe now in the very sort of Tudor style medieval English. Take wine and cannelle, which is cinnamon, and a great deal of white sugar, and set it on the fire and heat it hot. But let it not boil, and draw it through a strainer. Then take fair dates and pick out the stones, and leach or slice them all thin, and cast thereto. Then take wardens being a type of pear, and pare them and seethe them and leach them all thin, and cast thereto into the syrup. Then take a little saunderus, which is sandalwood, and cast thereto, and set it on the fire. And if thou hast charred quince being the fruit, cast thereto in the boiling. And look that it stand well with sugar, and well laid with cannelle, cinnamon, and cast salt thereto, and let it boil. And then cast it on a treen vessel, which is a wooden vessel, and let it cool, and serve forth. So there's the recipe that is in the 15th century manuscripts. Now, the Good Cookery website, which is a brilliant resource for sort of old recipes and modernising old recipes, they've modernised this recipe, and I'm kind of loosely basing my recipe that I'm doing today on their modernisation of it. But where they use ground cinnamon, I'm actually using cinnamon sticks. I wanted to kind of get back to what the Tudors would have used, the medieval people would have used. And they don't cook with quinces either, but as quinces are in season here, I'm going to be using a quince in my recipe. So the recipe from their website is 2 cups of red wine. I've got my red wine measured out here, and it doesn't matter about the quality of the red wine, any red wine, sort of house red that you've got. Now they use 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon, but I'm going to be using an actual cinnamon stick. They use a tablespoon of just normal white granulated sugar. They use half a cup of sliced dates. So the dates without the stones. I've actually got some ready prepared chopped dates here. Their recipe calls for 4 to 6 pears, and I'm using 5 pears. And I'm adding a quince to get back to that medieval recipe that you find in the Harleian manuscripts. They use a pinch of salt. You use table salt, sea salt, whatever salt you have in. And they also use a few drops of food colouring, red colouring, just to make the syrup really, really red. But I'm not bothering with that. I'm just going to have it the colour of the red wine. So that's the recipe. Now, the first thing we have to do is to prepare the fruit. The recipe calls for peeling all the fruit, coring it, and then slicing it very thinly so that you can then, it's nice and easy to eat, nice and edible. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to peel my fruit and slice it. Right, I've just put the quince, this thinly sliced quince, into a pan on the gas, and now I'm just adding the very thinly sliced pears. And then I'm going to be boiling them just as they are without any liquid because their own juice will come out. The recipe says to boil them until tender. So just going to mix them all together and just let them cook until they're nice and soft. Not overly soft because I don't want them to puree, but just until they're tender. While the fruit is boiling until it's tender, what we have to do is we have to heat the wine mixture to make the syrup. So I'm adding my 2 cups of red wine to a saucepan. I'm putting in my cinnamon stick, which will, ooze flavour. And then 1 tablespoon of sugar, and I'm just using granulated white sugar. And I'm just going to take that to the heat and just put it to heat while the fruit is boiling. My pears and quince are now tender. I don't want them so soft that they're breaking up and going mushy. So I've just cooked them until they are, soft, tender enough to enjoy. At this point, my wine has been heating for a while. I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to fish out the cinnamon stick because it will have given its flavour now. And I'm going to add it to the fruit. Along with a pinch of salt. Don't need that much, just a pinch of it. And half a cup of dates. Now these are already chopped, but you can use whole dates, just remove the stones and slice them up. And then we just let that boil for a few minutes. The fruit in the liquid just for a few minutes, and you can see how the fruit has absorbed the wine, and the smell from it is that the lovely smell that I always relate to my medieval Tudor cooking videos. It's the smell of cinnamon. It's cinnamon and ginger is what they tend to use, and that smell of cinnamon is just what you smell after I cooked every single Tudor recipe that I've done. So I'll just let that cool slightly. You can still see that the heat coming off it. It's still nice and hot. And I'm just going to serve some up into a dish. If you want it more syrupy, then all you do is just boil the wine with the sugar for a bit longer. But there you've got pears in compote, or pears in compost as it's written in the 15th century manuscripts, and that can be served by itself as a dessert, or it would be really nice, I think, with an old traditional British rice pudding. Instead of adding jam, I know some people like to add jam to rice pudding, then why not add some pears in compote? It really is a nice recipe. I'm just going to try a bit now. Actually, I'm going to grab myself a spoon and I'm just going to grab a bit. So I've left it so that the pears are still in slices, they're not mushy. That is lovely. Just the right amount of sweetness, and the cinnamon is really coming through. It's really, really nice. A gorgeous dessert. I'll definitely be doing that again because it's nice and simple. It's nice and healthy with that amount of fruit as well, and a great way to use up any fruit that you've got around the house that is just going a bit overripe. You could do it with apples or anything, but the quince and the pear go really well together. I'm glad that I added the quince. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and of course you'll be able to repeat it at home, and do let me know how you get on. Take care. Bye bye.